Firstly, for any PowerPoint lovers, I don't have a PowerPoint presentation. I don't like slides. And so I'll just be talking about the experience that we've had in Noor with regards to innovation. And hopefully you'll find it useful with regards to innovation activities that you may be trying to execute in your respective companies as well. Now, within Noor, because we were a relatively new company, we're only 6 years old, we always knew that we had to be different, we had to try new and different things. But it was about 3 years ago that we officially declared innovation as a goal, innovation as a core value, and innovation as something that we really wanted to nurture within our organization. And so we started our journey, and we started by looking and defining what innovation actually is. And that's the first real learning that I want to share with you. It is vitally important to get a common, agreed and published understanding of what innovation means. It is an incredibly overused word. In many cases, it's abused. And if you don't make that effort, what you will find is that many parts of the organization will have their own different interpretations, and they will all try to do a good job, but eventually they're going to clash. Within the organization, we simply started with a holistic statement which said any novel combination of existing tools and resources that had a positive impact would be considered an innovation. Now, while there are many technical definitions out there, one thing to remember is that it is less important to be technically correct than to be easily understood. If the entire organization is to become innovative, they must be able to understand the definitions and must be able to communicate and explain it. So do try to make it as simple as possible. We're telling you from experience because we didn't, and we learned the hard way, and then we had to retract back and try to make it as easy and simple as possible so that people don't keep confusing innovation with the word invention. The second major learning, and this is where I have a lot of disagreements with my peers, especially in this region, I think it's absolutely vital that your commander-in-chief, the CEO, not only supports innovation, but is really passionate about it, is willing to fight for it, is willing to argue his case. Because if he isn't, especially in a banking environment where ROI is so important, what you'll find is that eventually innovation remains confined to the technology domain, protected and nurtured by the CIO or the CTO. It is absolutely vital for your chief executive to be the person that is championing the cause of innovation. Thirdly, banks and financial institutions are very heavily regulated. For every person that has an idea, there are around 10 people who are being paid to find ways of why that cannot happen. Generalization, I know, but you have people in compliance, information security, audit, operational risk, internal control. Being an Islamic institution, we also have Sharia. These are the functions that eventually push the culture towards where people no longer submit ideas, or if they are doing so, they want to do so anonymously. That's certainly the culture that we had in the organization when we started upon this journey. And that's why I go back to the second observation, where it's absolutely vital to have your CEO passionate about innovation. Because what we did very early on is we got all the governance functions in the same room, we got the CEO there, and the CEO had a very long, honest, passionate discussion where he said why the board, why himself, and the management believe that innovation is the key to the success of our brand. And as governance functions, it is your responsibility to help us to do this in the safest way possible. Not to say no, not to prevent things from happening. Raise the risk, articulate the risk, and then let us decide whether this is a risk that we wish to take or not. To their credit, I have to say, today, my strongest partners are the governance functions. compliance, operational risk, internal control, information security are the first people that I go to when there is a concept that I want to bounce off. Because not only do they see the problems that may arise, they also come up with solutions of how we can mitigate those risks. When we started this journey, we had no idea of the importance that the governance functions played. We always assumed that it was the business lines that were failing to be innovative. Having understood that, we then started to really look at cultural aspects of how innovation is nurtured within an organization. So the first problem was getting people to submit ideas. Ideation was a problem. How do people come up with ideas? They collaborate, they talk. And so communication was a major issue. With the support of the governance functions, we became the first bank in the region, and I think the second company in the country. The first company was a small IT company with less than 20 people, to officially adopt social media as a means of communication within the company. And again, the CEO became vital for this, because he was on the social media platform constantly. Initially, you had a community that was very scared. You had a few bunch of people that were very, very happy with such a platform and were always on it. And our initial target within the first 6 months was to get 20% engagement. We hit over 60%. And what that showed us, that given the opportunity, the organization is willing to talk. The old hierarchical systems were not relevant on such a platform, especially if you have the top management very freely and openly engaging. So our CEO would take photographs of an ATM when he's abroad, if he likes what he saw, and he would post it and say, why can't we do this over here? Any ideas? And you would see a lot of people come on the platform and start talking about how we could make it happen from all across the organization. With collaboration came ideation. Within 6 months, we saw a 10-fold increase in the number of ideas being submitted. More importantly, all of these ideas were declared by the individual that this is my idea. They were not anonymous. People were willing to share. People were adding to those ideas. People were debating those ideas. And while it remained within a small community at first, it continued to grow. Today, the social media platform, Yammer by Microsoft, is an integral part of the organization. Nobody now thinks of why I'm using this platform. Everybody's instinctively using it, to the point that all internal communications are now only on this platform. There are no emails being sent out to anybody. But the function of service quality that owned the ideation process very soon started to get overwhelmed by the number of ideas that were coming in. And so we started to explore idea management platforms. We found one, we deployed it within the organization, and again we saw a 10-fold increase in ideation. After a 12-month period, there was a total 100 times increase in the number of ideas that were being submitted. At the same time, we also experimented with open innovation at GITEX, which I mentioned earlier. Here, we set a challenge. We confined it to online only, and we put a 20,000 dirham cash reward, and we just simply pushed it over a period of 30 days. We had tens of thousands of hits, thousands of very articulate ideas, shortlisted to around 900, which were then filtered down by a committee to a list of 5, and then the management selected 1. As it happened, that idea that was selected was given by a gentleman in Indonesia who was quite literally working in a sweatshop, but was also studying in the evenings, and it was there he had access to computers and the internet, came across our promotion and submitted his idea. And the idea was born from his frustration of being refused services by banks in Indonesia because he was classified as unbankable. Just so happened that 20,000 dirham cash reward just changed his life. He quit his job, he bought a shop, and now him and his brothers, they're running that as a business. But what it did show to us is that ideas can truly come from anywhere, and good quality ideas. And that with a little bit of effort, ideation is not a problem at all. Whether it's open innovation or your internal community, ideas do come. But what they then did was they revealed the next problem behind it. And that was that when you have so many ideas coming in, expectations grow for those ideas to be executed. And what it showed to us, that execution was where the real bottleneck appeared. In a banking environment, ROI is incredibly important. Every penny is to be accounted for. And it becomes very, very difficult for a business line to commit resources towards what is essentially an experiment. For every innovation that is to succeed, there will be at least 9, if not more, that will fail. And the culture within the banking industry, not just here but globally, is that those 9 failures will be questioned, and they will be questioned hard. And therefore, people are quite reluctant to adopt experimentation. So what we started to do was look at 2 separate models to see whether execution could be just pushed along a little bit. One was where we put the execution completely open and in a public environment. So what we did was, on the social media platform, we had a small project, and we put the project team and all of the results on that group. Everybody was aware of the progress of this particular project. And we picked one which was as far removed from the business line as possible. So it was either driven by regulation, or it was driven by such things as upgrades, where you actually, there was no choice, you had to do that project. So the question of whether I should fund it, not fund it, was not as relevant. What we found was that many of the projects benefited from being executed in a very open environment. People from the branches, for example, started following respective project groups. And where they thought there was an issue, they started to post their ideas. So what comes to mind immediately is our queue management system upgrade. That project was public, all the progress reports were public, all the user requirements were public, and what we started to find was that people from the branches started to comment and started to say that in my previous organization, when we did something like this, this is what was happening. And very quickly you started to see collaboration take place. The project was being amended to take into consideration all this feedback, and it went down as one of the smoothest and most well-received deployments that we'd had. At the opposite end of the scale, we had what we defined as a black box project. Here, a project was being run with the support of a third party. And there were only 3 or 4 people from the bank that were aware of this project. It was being run in complete isolation. We did not want to contaminate it with anybody else from the bank. And this was the app that we were designing. And what we tried to do over here is that we really wanted to think out of the box. We let non-bankers come up with the concepts and the designs. And it was this app that we demonstrated at GITEX last time. That app was derived not from the bank, but from designers, from marketers, from the general public, from anybody else except our banking group. And it yielded very, very positive results. That project was started and completed within 6 months. It ran incredibly smoothly. What we did find, however, is that once it was alive, there was a problem of fitment in the product portfolio of the business, because they now had to promote it. And so there was a lot of hesitance, there was a lot of stuttering, there were a lot of false starts in the marketing and branding of the app. And from there we learned that we had to, if you're going to run something in isolation, you had to also do the marketing and branding in isolation. And at some point you had to involve the business when the product was alive and very gently push it into the institution. We also then experimented with brand innovation. So we saw that there was a little bit of reluctance from businesses when things were being run in isolation. So what we then decided to do was to restructure some of the business lines. In the bank, we created a unit called Noor Trade. Exactly the same as it was before, same people, same processes, same products. All we simply did was we gave them their own identity. We made them autonomous, we gave them their own targets, and the revenues increased. All that we did was a little bit of brand innovation. And we were learning from this all the time on how we can get over this huge hurdle of getting the financing for a respective project without the cultural resistance that exists within an organization. The problems that we faced with regards to cultural acceptance cannot be resolved without the involvement of HR. And so HR, which wasn't a major partner at the start of the journey, has now become possibly the partner today. Today we're now exploring how to tweak the performance management systems so that the organization, in some cases, has comfort that whatever efforts that they're doing as part of innovation will go towards their performance appraisal. 2, linking the actual financial rewards themselves to those innovations as well. So for example, this year we're about to start experimenting on a model which does away with the requirement of funding. Again, it's an experiment. We will propose to the organization that you continue to do whatever it is that you are doing. At the end of the year, submit what you have delivered, whatever it may be, that you think could be innovative. And we will measure those activities and deliverables against a set criteria, which is published beforehand, of what it takes to be classified as an innovation. If your deliverable matches enough of the points over here, we will classify it as an innovation. And of course, once it's classified as an innovation, there is a reward. The advantage with such a model is that you don't need to deal with the problems of ideation, first and foremost. You don't need to deal with the problems of funding for experimentation. You use the existing business model and simply ask them to start thinking about innovation, and if they think it's innovative, submit it, see what happens. With time, you can tweak the criteria. You can make the criteria more and more difficult, you can make the criteria more and more focused and start taking innovation in a specific direction, but in an environment like a bank, it starts to speed things up because a lot of the delays actually occur with seeking approvals. Can I do this? Hopefully next year I'll be able to talk about some of the results of this experimentation. But the learnings that we've had in a banking environment are collaboration is easy. We talk about silo mentality. If you give the community the right tools and the right encouragement, collaboration is genuinely easy. People are very willing and very open to collaborate. Ideation is easy. It is not the problem. If you deploy the right tools and the right bit of encouragement, there's hardly any cost involved. You will get ideas. In fact, you will be drowning in ideas, I assure you. The key is in the execution. The key is in the allocation of resources. We've not quite found the right balance between the need for an ROI and the need to do experimentation, but we're certainly much closer to solving these particular issues. We've been at it for 2 years, and we're very encouraged by the results. And we can see cultural changes taking place within the organization. Certain things that you had to push 2 years ago, you no longer have to push now. People are much more willing to talk about ideas. People are much more willing to discuss ideas. People are not afraid of sharing ideas, which was another problem that we had identified. People wanted to keep it close to them because they wanted to get credit for it. Very soon they understood that you can't execute this on your own. You do need to have partnerships. And partnerships they did indeed build. So overall, the experiences have been encouraging. You will always have a community that doesn't get it because they are from a much more traditional mindset. The key is not to get discouraged. You must get CEO level sponsorship. It's not enough for him to just say, yeah, why not? Give it a try. No, he's got to be passionate about it. You must tackle the governance functions. They are not just the opposition, they are actually your allies. And you guys need to, at some point, understand this and collaborate. Without it, it's going to be a very, very difficult journey. Use the tools that are available. Ideation is not a problem. It is the funding for experimentation, and it is the execution that's going to prove the most difficult. Everything else, very, very doable. I hope that sometime in the future I'll be able to share more of my experiences of how we've got along, but I'm open to any questions that you might have at this point.